You're listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we're featuring our breakfast keynote spotlight on Black publishing that was presented at Children's Institute 2024 in New Orleans.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. We have an amazing panel in store for you for breakfast. But first, what do you think? You too can have one of these. Donate to ABFI at the welcome desk, and you can have a sweatshirt or a t-shirt, and you'll be warm instead of frozen. There you go. And the bracelet I like. So I would like to bring up ABA's DEIA and Communications Senior Copy Editor, Bria Camacho, to introduce the panel and who will be moderating. And if any of you have seen her before, she's amazing in action. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. We'll just get settled on stage. Anywhere you'd like. So as Joy said, I'm Bria Camacho. I'm ABA's DEIA and Communications Senior Copy Editor, and I'm very excited to welcome you to Spotlight on Black Publishing today. Like a spotlight, it illuminates something that is already present. So we're hoping that today, by the end of the session, you understand the importance and the continuous place of Black publishing and publishers in the ecosystem at large. So to get us started, I will introduce everybody from nearest to furthest, and then we'll get it going. So nearest to me is Cheryl Willis Hudson. She is an author, editor, publisher, and respected member of the children's book community. She's the co-founder of Just Us Books, a publisher and packager of books that celebrate African-American children, as well as co-author of Bright Eyes, Brown Skin. When I Hear Spirituals, her forthcoming book is Cheryl's first book for Holiday House. Next to Cheryl is Bria Ragin. Bria is a senior editor at Delacorte Press, where she works on middle grade and young adult fiction. She also edits for Joy Revolution, an imprint of Random House children's books, co-founded by authors Nicola and David Yoon, focusing on commercial teen romances written by and about people of color. Yeah. Last, but certainly not least, is Kwame M'Balia, the #1 New York Times bestselling author of the Tristan Strong series. And if you don't know the books in the series, it's Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky, Tristan Strong Destroys the World, and Tristan Strong Keeps Punching. He's the publisher of Freedom Fire, an imprint of Disney Hyperion devoted to stories about the Black diaspora by Black creators. Welcome, and thank you all for joining us. So to get started, y'all, I'd just love to ask, how did you become publishers and editors? What drove you to publish children's books by, for, and about Black life specifically? And Cheryl, I'll start with you.
Well, this is a wonderful, wonderful place to be to talk about publishing, to talk about books. I love books, and we really got started as parents who were looking for good books for our children. And this was years ago. But at that time, there were only a few Black authors and illustrators who were published by the trade, and who were getting really exposure, Walter Dean Myers, maybe Eloise Greenfield, Virginia Hamilton, and Just Us Books, the company, independent children's book company that my husband Wade and I founded. It was founded in 1988, really to find books for our own children. So that's how I got started in publishing, although I had been in publishing for like years before, working on school textbooks for a company in Boston. So.
Amazing. We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Kwame?
we're skipping. Okay.
No pressure.
I thought I had more time. I think at the heart, and I may be assuming, but I'm going to assume this anyway. I think at the heart of every publisher is a reader who loves books, right? And so I think if you have ever shared a book title joyously with another person, have you read this? You need to read this. You're getting all of your friends in on it. Next thing you know, you've started a book club, right? And you're recommending titles. Next thing you know, you're bringing them into the classroom or ordering them through your library's request form for the library to stock them. Next thing you know, you're starting a newsletter to talk about books by Black authors because a title that you realized was perfect for you escaped your notice, and you're like, why has no one told me that this existed? So you start a newsletter, and then as if that isn't too much for you to chew and you don't have, kids to parent and books to write, your editor approaches you and says, hey, you have been championing books by Black authors. Let's work together to start an imprint to intentionally celebrate, uplift, and encourage these stories from the Black diaspora to be shared and to be shared widely. And you foolishly, I got plenty of time. I don't need to sleep. You agree. Like, it's awesome. And it is awesome because, again, it all comes back to that young reader who just wanted more stories to read and to share.
What an answer.
Right?
Right, do not have me follow up comment.
Heard.
So my journey, it started in high school. I was always a YA romance reader, but I was reading Sarah Jessen, Rainbow Rowell, and Lauren Kate. And I just didn't see myself reflected in those books. But I actually tell my manager, Wendy Loja, all the time that I remember reading her name in the back of the acknowledgments. And I was like, I could do that. I believe in myself. And so I think I just made it a point to do it. I went to college. I studied creative writing. But I always knew I wanted to be an editor, and I was a bookseller at a chain I won't mention. I'm so sorry. And I was also an intern at a literary agency, and then that manager connected me with Rosemary Brosnan, who works for Quill Tree Books at Harper, and then I worked there for 4 years or so, and then in October of 2020, I saw the announcement for Joy Revolution by Nicola and David Yoon, and obviously I read and loved their books, and I wanted to get into publishing to do YA romance, and the fact that it was focused on people of color, I was like, was this made for me? And then I remember doing our interview, we talked for like 3 hours because we just connected so much on like what we wanted to see in the romance community. And I mean, our list is technically all people of color, but, I also edit horror and thriller for Delacorte. So I would say, 8 out of 19 of my authors are Black women. Everyone on my list is a woman of color. And it's just great because, especially with my Black female authors, we can just share our experiences, like, I'll talk about it later, but in one book we were just talking about how like everyone thinks ginger ale is a cure. And another book we're just like talking about, sitting for like 10 hours getting your hair braided. And so like those are like the type of experiences that like, I didn't always have when I was an assistant, but it's great to have now. But we're also not a monolith. So I learn from my authors every day.
Wait, ginger ale is not a cure?
No, it is.
Unfortunately not. I tried it.
Bria, I'm so glad you believed in yourself and that you're here too. So something that really struck me about the work that you all do are the names of your imprints and publishing houses, right? They're stories in themselves, Just Us, Freedom Fire, Joy Revolution. So how do these concepts of just us, or justice, as it sounds to me, freedom and joy sort of drive the way you publish books for young people?
Well, when we started Just Us Books in 1988, Wade and I were sitting around the table trying to think, okay, we self-published a book, Alphabet's ABC book, before we started the company. And we're trying to think of a name for a company when we decided, oh, we're going to actually do this on a full-time basis, not just a one-off. And it was just the two of us. So it's just us. We had a long list of names, none of which I can remember now. But I remember saying, well, look, it's just us. How can we, that's it. Just us. Just the two of us. So we started as the co-founders, as parents together. And a lot of people have come to ask us, are you saying justice? Are you saying justice? And in a way, I think we are, and we'll take it because we do publish books and look for authentic stories that liberate us, that free us, that represent us in all aspects of Black life, regular children doing regular things, counting, 1, 2, 3, ABC. So A is for apple. It's for alligator, but it's also for Africa, which is the beginning. So that was a concept that we had that's part of us. So that's really how Justice has come to be. And we have come to represent books that talk about freedom and justice and liberation and joy and just the wonders of being a kid. Just us. Just the two of us.
If you don't know, Wade Hudson is here as well. So,
Yeah,
no sweat. Bria?
Sure. I actually wrote down a quote from David Yoon, and he created the logo, and he said, "It's a heart protected by a shelter. It's a signal to readers that when you pick up a Joy Rev book, they will be swept away by a great story that shows people of color in the full breadth of their humanity." And one of the most universal feelings is love and joy. We all crave it. We all want it. So why shouldn't Black and brown characters get to experience it and see themselves on the page? Like, our lives are not limited to struggles and overcoming adversity and trauma. And, as an editor, when I get in a submission that has any amount of trauma, I immediately curl up in a ball. I'm like, I can't handle this. I think my life is, I've experienced enough to know that I just want to center my work life. I'm 30 now, and I'm like, this is it. I just am going to be working for the rest of life. And so I need to fill my time with joy and happiness and love. And there's nothing more revolutionary, especially for teens, and that first love. I can remember it. I just the swoons, the feels, the text, and that's what I want to give teens and young and adult readers too.
Kwame?
It feels almost wrong to have fire, excuse me, in the title when we're talking about books. It just seems like it's, there's something just illegal about that, right? But fire is a force. Fire is a part of nature. It is natural. It sweeps, it consumes. And then afterwards, new growth forms. So I want you to think about the feeling that you got when you picked up a book and it was written for you. This is all the vibes. If it's swooning, if it's action, adventure, if it's joy, that all-consuming need to read it. Eating can wait. Excuse me. My phone calls, my parents, no, not them, not my parents. Family, they do insert themselves. But that all-consuming need to read and devour stories. That's what I think about when I think of fire, right? And then when you couple that with freedom, the freedom to read whatever you want without restrictions or bans or limits or constraints or judgment from someone else. You read this, you read that. I do. And I enjoy it. And I feel better about myself when I do read it. So Freedom Fire in its totality, when we put that together, is the freedom to love reading. And we want you to love these stories from the Black diaspora that we're sharing, because at the end of the day, it is a celebration of storytelling. And we want you to read and pass that book along. And so that's why at the end of every talk about Freedom Fire, I always say, we want to spark a change. We want to ignite again that love for reading, as if you have picked up that book that was for you for the first time.
Mm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for walking us through that process and what the hearts of your imprints and the hearts of the stories that you work to bring out in the world. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and say, I work in DEIA, and so I have a lot of conversations about equity and this mode of thinking that says, why wouldn't you just call yourself like a copy editor? Why wouldn't you just call yourself, a communications person? So what is the importance of you being Black publishers or being known as Black publishers? Why, one might say, why wouldn't you just call yourselves publishers? It's not something I would say, but it's something I would love to hear your thoughts on. Specifically, how does bringing your identity into your publishing shape your list, your work, its reach, etc.?
As an African-American woman, I identify with African-American history and culture. I identify by calling myself a Black woman as well. For Just Us Books and for publishing, it really is important in this day and time and from the beginning to put that out there. Right? We want people to know that we're African-American, that we're Black, that we represent authentic stories, that we are publishing stories that we want to tell. For so long, we have been erased, misrepresented, stereotyped, and I don't think people in general recognize, necessarily in this day and time of more diversity, that racism is so much embedded in our culture. So the question of asking, why would you want to be Black, almost says, why don't you want to be white? And we don't realize it. It's embedded in our language. So it's important to us to present a unified portrait of Black people in the diaspora, just as human beings. But it's necessary to call ourselves Black because everybody else did before it was a positive term. So it's like having Black History Month. People ask, why do you have Black History Month? Well, it's needed because we've been here forever and the history has not been known. It has not been told. So you need to know that it is Black, and I'm proud of it. So let's go on and buy my book.
Completely. Kwame?
Me?
Are you ready?
Yes.
What are you going to say? It's to impress everyone, and then I have to follow that up.
Stop it. So an analogy that I just use, I feel like I hammer it into the ground. I use it over and over and over, right? But I think it's applicable, probably because it started with my then toddler, now 4-year-old. And I'm sure it's something that, you out there, if not, if you haven't seen it, apply it to children, or you've applied it to your own children or to children of others. When you go to a birthday party that is not for you,
Need to know that
You
it is
still
Black,
have fun.
and I'm proud of it. So
right?
let's
You
go
might
on
walk
and
away with a
buy
goodie
my
bag
book.
with some bubbles in it and a bouncy ball. You're going to have some cake or a cupcake. There might be a bounce house. You're going to dance a little bit. You're going to have
ready?
fun.
Yes.
But the day is not for or about you. And
What are you
yet
gonna say
everyone's
since
having
I
a
said
great
we wanted
time.
to, like,
It's a novel concept. When we say that, we are publishing
an analogy
books,
that I just use,
about
I feel like I hammer
uplifting and celebrating Black culture and Black
I'm a
stories.
Black woman who edits.
That doesn't mean that you can't read them and enjoy them. In fact, I encourage you to. Y'all claps. I feel like I should just stop right there.
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay. I'm a Black woman who edits books. I can't hide my identity. I'm proud to be a Black woman. I also don't go around saying that I'm a Black editor because I think it's obvious. But we're also just still in a world where people automatically see me and say like, "Oh, you're that Black editor." Like that's how I went to predominantly white schools, like high school, college, and I was like in college. I remember someone saying, "Oh, you're that Black girl," because there was no one else in that science class who was. So I'm very used to it, unfortunately. And I think in terms of equity, I think we do. Equity is not saying that I'm the same as my white counterpart, my white editors and colleagues. It's giving me the extra resources and support so that I can be as successful as them, knowing that I'm fighting in many battles, knowing that like we can't be on the same ladder. I need a taller ladder in order to be successful. And I think people are often conflating equality and equity. I am looking for equity in publishing. And that's what I'm saying.
If I could add something there.
course.
I mean, there's this concept again, and it's kind of based in racism that universality means bland or all world, but white. I mean, and that's in the lingua franca, that's the language. So that if your book is about an African-American boy named Jamal, for example, who has a busy day at school, are you identifying that as a Black book? Because the name is Jamal and it's identified with boys who are named Jamal, rather than Peter, who sits in the chair and loves his chair and is not named as a Black boy, but his name is Peter. So I'm saying in the language and in the assumptions that people make about literature, universal is all that, but Blacks or Asians or Native Americans or any BIPOC people are exceptions to that. So therefore, our books are not universal. And that's not true.
At all.
It's not true at all. So if your character happens to be an African-American boy or a girl or a cis person or a gay person, they're a human being. So the categories, we get all confused about them, but our books are universal and they talk about the human experience. And I happen to be an African-American woman, or that happens to be a Black child, but that experience can be felt by children anywhere. And Kwame says it best, and he can say it again.
I will say it again. I will say that if you can relate, empathize, and understand the plight of Queen to be Rhaenyra in House of Dragons, you can understand the plight of Jax or Tristan Strong or any other Black character moving through life and the obstacles that they face. Because, I think Black children are a little bit more believable than dragons to some people.
Absolutely.
And I said this on our prep call, is like, I remember reading this article and there was a white reader and she said, I did not know that Black people love the same. And that really, as a romance editor, I really sat with that. I'm like, there are people who think that I experience love differently. And like, how do I overcome that? The point of Joy Rev books is that you see these teens of color just falling in love and finding joy and just going through all of the same awkward moments as every other teen does. It is not like, at Joy Rev, we don't lead with, this is a Black romance. No, this is a romance that has Black characters. This is a romance that has Indian characters, but these are swoony commercial love stories. I think when we get caught up in the mission of like, I want to sell Black books, right? I think sometimes we're getting away from, these are commercial stories that anybody would love. Like sometimes, and like Nikki, Dave, and I say this all the time, like, we don't want this to feel like vegetables, right? This is not homework. Mm-hmm. I want this to be like, you are reading this book just like you would a Sarah Dessen book. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to get to. And it doesn't feel like, oh, we need to pat ourselves on the back for reading Black romances. Mm-hmm. It's just a fun story. Mm-hmm.
Bria, you have so perfectly transitioned us into our next question. So I will toss it back to you, because particularly in the romance market and in the genre market, but all over the market, there's an emphasis on marketability, on how do we get these books to readers? How do we get them to connect with these stories? If they don't see themselves on the cover, things of these assumptions, like you said, Cheryl. So do you ever, you kind of answered this, but if you'd like to expand, do you feel at odds with the market or the industry as you work to share these stories just as stories and experiences from the heart? And Bria, I'd love to start with you in the romance market and horror too.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. We know that Book Talk is helping to sell books, but I think a lot of people of color especially have talked about and know that the TikTok algorithm is biased. And The Cut has actually a really good article about racial biases of TikTok. And so it's really having to fight against that bias. It's really hard for Black creators to get the visibility because we keep circulating the same few white romance authors, which is, those are great books. Divine Rivals is wonderful. I really do love Rebecca Ross, Powerless things, but I do want to see other people. It's we just need to be more inclusive. We can have those stories, but we also need stories with Black and brown faces. I just want Book Talk to allow more people. And I think once we know that Book Talk's algorithm is a little bit biased, then we can make maybe more concerted efforts to go against it. And I also when you're seeing when you're seeing bestseller lists, I can understand, as if you're an author, if you're feeling discouraged by the lack of diversity on it. But I tell my authors to not put too much pressure on themselves. Just be you, and then people will eventually come to you and appreciate your work. And I think as obviously I hear sales, I hear marketing, I hear publicity, and what they're saying, and we've made strides. When I started in the industry in 2016, the marketing plans looked very different. And I think we've definitely broadened our horizons, which is great. There's still more work to be done. I just want to get to the point where we're just normalizing these stories. And I think that we have work to do, but I am very optimistic that we can get there. And I need booksellers. I need booksellers to help us fight against Book Talk. Book Talk is great if they show the true diversity and there's so many phenomenal, especially I mainly read and edit romance, but there's so many phenomenal romance writers. And like, there are so few that break through. There's like Talia Hibbert, who's my author, Kennedy, thank you. In the adult space, there's Kennedy Ryan and Jasmine Guillory, but there's so many more beyond that. And I'm reading them, and I read them for fun. And I'm like, how is this person not broken out yet? I just do not understand it. And I think it's just us being a little bit louder. It's not enough to congratulate people. We need to show up and support.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Marketing is a big M word.
Mm-hmm.
And to be reflective, let's think about marketing and what it is now and what it has become. And going back to 1988, with Afrobet's Book of Black Heroes, we were told that these titles were not necessarily marketable.
Mm-hmm.
There's no market. Why would you need an Afrobet's ABC book? Well, why not?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so the question about marketability is within the mind of traditional ways of selling books, and that the books that need to be on the shelves are, and that were on the shelves, were a biography of Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver. And there were a couple of others. But if you look back to the data from 1988, you're not going to see When I Was Little or Jamal's Busy Day or Raise Your Hands and Resist the Talk, books on specifically about race, because they're I don't know, that's too controversial a topic. Why would you need an Afrobet's book? Why would you need to talk about? Let's think about that.
Mm-hmm.
So marketing, people told us when we brought ideas to them, and this was almost every publisher in New York, Philadelphia, and Boston, that these books are not marketable. So we said, why are they not marketable? How many Black people do you have in the United States? How many parents do you have? How many Black kids are there? Why can't it be? So marketability is, a funny kind of term. Who determines what that market is? So basically, we, went and sold our books in the streets and with distributors who taking a book to the people who then said, we are the market for this book. So in terms of bookmark, book talk, other avenues, you've got to get reviews. You've got to have the gatekeepers, and you've got to have the publications and the media. But ultimately, the people are the market, and they provide what needs to be in that market. So I'm just something to think about.
It is something to think about. Thank you. Kwame, anything to add?
I mean, they have so wonderfully, captured the business, market and publicity and these terms. I almost feel like they're, and you as booksellers have experience with this, right? That you have two audiences, right? You have people who are coming in looking for categories, right? They purchase categories. All right, I need romance books. I need Black romance books. I'm looking for rom-coms. I'm looking for fantasy, romantasy. They're purchasing which is fine. They're looking, they see what is selling, they see the trends. They want more of that, right? Whether they're readers or they're buying for other readers, right? And then you have people who want a story. They don't care about categories, right? They don't care about where this slots into. And a lot of times categories are invented and books are slotted in there, and then they're slotted back there 5 years later, right? Based off of what is trendy, what is buzzworthy, right? But some readers, I want a story, right? And so when a reader who wants a story comes in, you toss the category labels out and you tell them, well, what do you like? Well, I was just reading this family, this magic family. I would like to see more, magical, family stories. And you're like, Tracy Baptiste has a Moco magic story coming out. And tell me more. And so we are pitching, readers don't care about what the label is on the spine, right? They want that story inside. That label out is a lot of times for us to shelve, to categorize, to sort, and to show off our wizardry with Excel sheets, right? Like that's for us on the other side. But readers come in and they're like, I just read the most beautiful sci-fi, space love story. Do you have more of those? Oh, I do. I love that as well. I was reading this. I was reading that. And you get into a conversation as two readers, right? And so I love, as from the publisher side, I love labels because I look for those, because that's what I want to, my parents, they instilled that in me. I didn't know that there was a disparity in Black stories when I was growing up. And you know why I didn't know that? It's because Doretha M'Balia and Ahmed M'Balia traveled around the country and the world looking for Black stories. And they would come home and they would fill up the bookshelves outside of our bedroom. And so we would wake up and come out and we had a library of books with faces that looked like mine and my siblings on them. And I thought, this is how the world operated. Mm-hmm. And it was a brutal shock when I figured the opposite, right? And so my goal is I am going to be the parent to all of the young readers out there, and we want to stock those shelves so they don't have to worry about categories. They can just pick stories as they see fit, because we've done the hard work for them. Mm.
I'm feeling some fire. I'm not gonna lie. You all have so embedded in this work sort of discussed these sort of historic and present barriers that there are to publishing Black children's and young adult books. But to name them and put them in the room, they include book banning, inequality, racism, and a general need for more Black books, authors, illustrators, and publishers across the industry. Despite that, putting aside that pain and that difficulty, how do you define and measure success for yourself and for your stories? And how do you fill your cup up in this work, despite those things that would have you otherwise not do this work at all? Cheryl?
We love it when we go to, as an author and as a publisher, because we wear different hats, but multiple hats. Mm-hmm. To see a child come up to us and say, oh, that looks like me. Mm-hmm. I got a baby sister. We published a book, like I'm a big sister now. I'm a big brother now. Those are stories that are meaningful to individual children. And as Kwame has said so eloquently, you see yourself in that book, you see yourself as being represented. And we get wonderful letters from teachers saying, oh, thank you for just making the story available. So I would say that the success comes not in terms of book sales. We've never had a New York Times bestseller, but we've sold like millions of books on the street, and they are not necessarily recorded because they weren't recorded at that time. They've been hand sold, or parents have given them to children from a book fair that was at their church or at the Y or summer camp. So seeing the smile on a child's face and getting a letter that says, this looks like me, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to see myself in a book. And that's wonderful, because for so many years, you didn't want to see yourself in a book. If you want to find something out about a Black person, don't look in a book at all, or hide it in a book. Mm-hmm. So,
absolutely,
it's heartwarming. That's a measure of success for justice.
Bria?
Correct. Yeah, so an editorial, in order to move up, your books have to sell well. Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute being a New York Times bestseller helped immensely. Having, a book sell in 7 countries, I have a book called Fake Dates and Mooncakes, which did, that was helpful. I think when I was named a PW Star Watch honoree, I was like, okay, I'm headed in the right direction. Even just like being here and booksellers and authors saying like, oh, I know who you are. I'm like, wow, okay. Then there are people who understand what I'm aiming for and like our mission and like that. Thank you if you have come up to me. I really appreciate that. But like what fills my cup is just having my authors come back. You know, sometimes they don't. But I think if I establish a really great connection and bond with my authors, that like brings me a lot of joy. If like we get to the point where they feel like they can, you know, email me almost whenever, or like text me and just have really genuine conversations. I love in the margins of an edit, just saying, this is the experience I've had, and like us just like going back and forth and understanding and talking about life, that fills my cup, because I don't work with a lot of editors who look like me. And so it's really nice that I can turn to my books, turn to my authors, and just like have these like really genuine conversations. And seeing, you know, my authors' books in stores and on shelves, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I've done this. Like 14-year-old Bria is just like so proud of herself. And, you know, I get to go into like Target and like indie booksellers and like the bookstores, and like I show my mom the axe. I'm like, Mom, there's my name. And she's like, and then she like takes a picture. I'm like, I gave you the book though. That I think you know, being an only child's like making my mom proud. It's like which truly like fills my cup. But you know, so too do my authors. Yeah.
So I will, there are two different kind of stories I'll say. As a publisher, of course, we want the accolades, we want the sales, because that means through capitalism, we get to continue to do more of that, right? So we obviously want that. We want, you know, and we applaud when Tracy's Mocha Magic gets a starred review, right? We are excited when titles do well, if they hit lists. All of that is wonderful, and we want to achieve that. Me personally, when I was first doing Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky, I was in Philadelphia. I was doing an event at Uncle Bobby's, an independent bookstore up there. And a mother came in with a kid who reminds me of my 4-year-old now. So he couldn't have been much older. Curly-haired brown boy, just bopping around, just in his own little world, as they tend to do. Like, punch, 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 strong, you know, that's what they do, right? And there's a giant 3-by-2-foot poster of the book cover of Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. And if you know that book cover, Tristan's on the cover like this with John Henry on his back. And the little 4-year-old, 5-year-old boy is just bopping along, hey, and he sees the cover and he just stares at it. And he stands there for like 5 seconds and then he does the pose. And his mother takes a picture and she's crying and I'm crying because it's like, he can't read the book yet. But he saw his face. And that, again, as readers, our first attempts at reading are seeing the pictures and interpreting and making our own story. And so to create, you know, he is creating in his mind some story based off of that book cover, right? That fills my cup, right? And then to have you all come up to me, as Bria was saying, individually, telling me stories like that of there's this kid who, you know, he wasn't really into any of the books. I gave him Tristan, or I gave him an advanced copy of Jax, and he read it and he loved it. And he came back and he started asking for, do you have more? When you all send me, tell me, find me, and give me stories like that, that refills my cup. And that reminds me of what I'm doing it for. Am I doing it for the starred reviews? I love starred reviews. Am I doing it to hit the New York Times best-selling list? I would love to hit the New York Times best-selling list. I would love for all of of the Freedom Fire books to hit the New York Times bestselling list? Do we want adaptations? Yes, we want all of those accolades. I also want children to read these stories, find themselves, and enjoy them.
My heart is so full, I have to say. We are at our last question, and I love to leave everyone. I already feel inspired and ready to get these books out in the world in the abstract way that I do at ABA. But I want to make sure that the people in this room who do that every single day, and thank you for doing that, by the way, feel that they can do that no matter their role in this industry or in their store. So in addition, we've talked about Book Talk's algorithm, sort of cheating the system, getting through to readers and people on social media, as well as stocking and selling these titles. What's one action you'd like to see members of the industry take to uplift Black publishers, Black stories, Black illustrators? Is there any measure of support you feel goes overlooked or things like that? You can think, take your time.
I'll go if anyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Contact your connections, with our publishers and tell them, hey, we have schools that are hungry for author visits, especially in the middle grade space. That's how we get in front of our readership, right? So if you're like, hey, I'm in this area here, and we have schools that sorely need, authors from Freedom Fire, from Joy Revolution, from Just Us Books to come in and talk. They are hungry for these stories. That's, one of the biggest ways, if you couldn't tell, when we get in front of you, we have fun and you're going to have fun. So imagine what happens when we get in front of the students. Those kids won't know what hit them. We will be talking about everything under the sun except for books. Because at the end of the day, they're going to form that relationship with us as authors and speakers. We're not coming in them trying to sell them something. We're coming in them trying to talk to them as people, finding out what they like, insult them a little bit, because that's how I roll, right? If you've never walked into a middle grade classroom ready to insult some kids, you've never prepared adequately. Get us in front of them and we will form that relationship. And at the end of the day, when we leave, they will be like, that dude, that lady, that author was pretty awesome. It's pretty cool. Remember when he said he could beat you at 2K? And I was like, nah. And then the next thing you know, they find their footsteps as they're chatting and they're walking to the library like, hey, do you have their books? Can we check them out? Let's see what they're about. Forming that relationship first, getting us in front of the students is so important, because if you tell them to read something, they're not going to read it. But if you tell them that, Kwame M'Balia said he'll put 50 on you with the Green Bay Packers and Madden, like, nah, and he'll just be like, what did that Kwame M'Balia write? So I could trash talk him while we're playing. Talk to your connections, get us in front of those kids. I promise you, it'll be a memorable experience for them and for us.
Mm-hmm. He said it all, so I say, right? Ashe. We love independent booksellers. We make our connections with independent booksellers who make connections in the community, with schools, with libraries too, because independent booksellers will come with Just Us Books authors to sell books at a library author visit. And it's really important for children to see the author, to experience them, to know that they are real people and not just a name on a cover. So that relationship, I don't know about K2 and I don't know about, I'm a different generation, but it's still good. Our theme at Just Us Books is Just Us Books. We still make a difference. And that difference is in an individual kid, a teacher who can bring a lesson, not in a didactic way, but in a real way through connection of storytelling and our humanity. So booksellers, like I say, buy our books, invite us to your stores, connect with and keep doing the things that you're doing to connect directly with the community who wants to see what we can bring and offer to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just happy and grateful to be here among
We're happy too.
And like, you know, also to get out of the house. I mean, as an editor, I'm just like behind a computer editing books all day. I'm not out in the world. I'm not like the awesome field reps here who like get to talk to all of you. And so I really need you to be my voice. I'm like, I wish I could go around the world, around the country, just like, you know, telling people how great my books are because they truly are fantastic. So I need you to do that for me, please. I have like that passion, like how you stock and sell books is like really like crucial, right? Like you need someone to like really just like talk to a child, understand what they're looking for. The way you hand sell is just so important. Again, I know from my little bit of experience as a bookseller, like you guys are really, really vital to making all of our books just be a success, and like host as many events as you can with guaranteed audiences. When I see, you know, authors go to events and there are very few people, I get very sad. You know, put these books next to the book talk tables, just like have their eye right there. Face like books by people of color out. I mean, I'm from Philadelphia, so if I'm like in Uncle Bobby's or if I'm in a New York bookstore, I will do it myself. But like if you don't, if you don't face my books out, I will. But please do. You know, start a book club if you don't already have one. You know, you can use me. Like I'm relatively available to do things. I know that like, you know, editors don't get this opportunity to speak to booksellers. So I really appreciate you taking the time to just hear me out.
Yeah. Thank you. I cannot thank you three enough for your generosity and wisdom and time and the things you are tangibly bringing into the world for young readers, for us in this room, and for booksellers. I hope you take this spotlight as a piece of light back with you wherever you're headed, no matter where you're going next, and feel that these stories are also stories that your community needs too, and that we all need Black publishers in this industry to continue as an industry. So thank you so much for your time. I don't take it for granted. Thank you all for your time, and enjoy the rest of the program. Thank you so much. Well done. I do also want to give everyone on stage a chance to talk about the books that are coming out very quickly if you have some time. So if you would like to discuss your titles very quickly, Cheryl.
This is wonderful because I started out as an author. I just wanted to be published, you know, and you know, we ended up being Justice Books publishing ourselves. So I am just delighted that I've finally been published by Holiday House. And the new book that I have coming out is a wonderful book. And I'm not saying it because I wrote it, but
I still believe it.
It's important to me because it's a book about spirituals, African-American music, and how much that music is a part of our history. So it's illustrated wonderfully by London Ladd. It talks about the history of spirituals, and I want everyone, if you can get a copy of the preview that we have here today, and thank my publisher, Holiday House, for putting London Ladd and myself together, and for me being here as an author. I love this. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, so you see my title, Jax Freeman and the Phantom Shriek. Before that publishes in October, Tracy Baptiste, the lovely Tracy Baptiste. Let me make sure I don't misquote the pitch. But her book, Moko Magic Carnival Chaos, comes out on August 6th, which feels like it's right around the corner. And it is about an Afro-Caribbean inspired story about three cousins who discover they are Mokos, protector spirits, during carnival season in Brooklyn. So that comes out August 6th. Jax Freeman and the Phantom Shriek, which is a book about a secret world with summoners where kids realize that they can channel magic from their ancestors and learn how to control it. Or, as I like to call it, imagine a Black Naruto in the streets of Chicago. That comes out October 1st. And then Black Girl Power, an anthology edited by Leah Johnson, comes out November 12th.
Okay, so coming up from Joy Rev, we have Love Requires Chocolate that comes out August 20th. That's a paperback original romance. I know that paperbacks are selling, so please, I hope this works. It's about a girl studying abroad in Paris, the city of lights, and falling for a hot footballer who also makes chocolate. It's just like a win-win situation. It's a debut romance. The author, Raven K. Stringfield, is very excited. And then we have The Dividing Sky by debut author Jill Tu. Yes. Arts will be available. Please go pick one up. That comes out on October 8th. That is Amy Kaufman called it a cozy dystopian romance. And so I'm just going with it. And it's about a girl who illegally deals happy memories and the rookie cop who is trying to stop her. So it's an enemies to lover. It also has an amnesia trope. I'm very excited about it. And Jill is so brilliant and nuanced, and I love her. And then 2025, we have Brood with Love. That comes out January 14th, and that's also a debut. It's a cozy romantasy about a witch who has to save her family's apothecary from falling to the competition with the help of her childhood best friend and first crush. And that is a sapphic Black romance, and I'm very excited about Shelley as well. And then lastly, I'll talk about Love on Paper, which comes out January 21st. This is the sophomore novel from author Danielle Parker. She wrote You Bet Your Heart. It's another contemporary romance, and it's about two writers from rival writer families, and they're just wanting to be in an anthology, and it's so cute. Danielle's so witty, and I love her. So keep your eye out for all of those. I know that you're not thinking about Spring 25 right now, but just keep it in mind. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. I hope you enjoy these titles when they come out. I know I will. I'm going to read all of these and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA website at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!